Hey everyone, and welcome to Deadite Talk. This is the very first episode where we go back and rewatch Ash vs. Evil Dead, one of the best horror TV shows of all time, one of the best horror franchises of all time. And you know, the series aired about 9 years ago. I thought, you know what, maybe we really need to go back and, you know, dissect every episode, go over all the little details that we may have missed when we first watched it, pick out our favorite scenes. Because I feel like, you know, the TV show definitely warrants that. And, you know, of course, we're going to have an animated show coming up soon. Not sure when, but, you know, it's been teased by Bruce a bunch of times. And, of course, we'll continue this podcast. If the animated show does come out, we can then do some reviews about it. And, you know, we're leading up to Halloween right now. This is going to be a weekly episode thing. You know, we'll do one episode a week. I'll try and maybe pull in some other content creators as well, some other Evil Dead fans, to see if they want to jump in on this and, you know, give me their thoughts, and we'll discuss an episode and rewatch it and, you know, pick out all the highlights and, you know, who the favorite actor was in the episode, you know, if there's any guest stars that really stood out. You know, I feel like I said, it's worth to shine light on this right now. Like I said, it's been nearly 9 years since the first episode aired for Ash vs. Evil Dead. You know, it's coming up to its 10-year anniversary next year, which is insane to think about. And, you know, I wasn't a person that came around to Ash vs. Evil Dead. Originally when it came out, you know, I probably didn't watch it until about 4 or 5 years ago, something like that. So I am a recent Evil Dead fan, but I am a huge Evil Dead fan. And before we begin jumping into the episode, I just want to ask you guys to please support the channel and the podcast, you know, hitting the subscribe button, become a member of the channel as well. You can leave little super thanks in the comment sections as well. It greatly helps out in supporting me and continuing doing content and all that stuff. And of course, I've got some merch. So I actually sped run getting this out. I made this logo on Friday, and, you know, I went onto a website just to quickly order a t-shirt with this. I will try and get the merch out as soon as possible if you guys are interested in the merch with this new logo on. I did spend quite a bit of time making the logo. I hope you like it. I think it fits the podcast very nicely. You know, you've got Ash there, and you've got Deadite Talk written on the sides here, and you've got a Rewatch podcast there, so that looks really cool. So if you are interested in that, I will put it on my normal merch website, and you can get a hold of that. I don't know how long I'll have it on there for. I may only do it for a limited time. But like I said, if he's interested in getting that merch, I'll definitely put it on there. But yeah, I just thought get it all nice and set up for the podcast and ready to go. And like I said, leaving a like on the podcast, even a comment, definitely helps out the podcast to do well. It'll get sent to more people, and that way we can get more people involved, get more reviews going on, you know, all that good stuff, and all the topic of discussion that we can talk about each episode. And the beautiful thing about Ash vs. Evil Dead is the episodes aren't too long. You know, they're 30 minutes long normally. The pilot was 40 minutes long. But that's probably the longest episode. I believe the finale of season 3 might be a bit longer than 30 minutes, but I can't really remember. We'll have to wait and get there. But, you know, this is going to lead us up into Halloween. Like I said, this is going to be a weekly episode thing. So one a week, you know, for the next 10 weeks, we're obviously going to be doing the first season. By then, you know, we're going to be around Halloween time. You know, the season finale is going to hit, or maybe the season premiere of season 2. So let's just see what happens. And I'm really excited to get this. So let's jump into the episode. This is Ash vs. Evil Dead, episode 1, El Jefe. Aired December 1st, 2015. Like I said, nearly 9 years ago. So when it hits December 1st this year, 9 years ago is when this actually aired. And, you know, it's wild to think that the way technology has been, you know, I wouldn't say we've had massive advantages in, like, advances in CGI and everything, but this holds up really well for being 9 years old. It holds up really well, and like I said, there's not really much to differentiate, like, from 2015 to now in a lot of TV shows, and this did really well. It was directed by Sam Raimi, of course, written by Sam Raimi, Ivan Raimi, and Tom Spelzy. I think I've said his name right there. So it is also guest starring Damian Garvey as Mr. Roper, and one of I don't know, some of these, you know, guest stars that come in, they literally are in here just to do like 1 or 2 scenes, and they nail it. Like, they do so well with that. We got Cian Davis, I want to say I'm pronouncing that name right, as Vivian. We have Mike Edward as Carson, Marissa Stott as the Tattoo Girl, and Bridget Hoffman, who also did some voices of Into the Spider-Verse and Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness as well. And we have Phil Pelleton as Kelly's father. Okay, so this is a really weird synopsis. I pulled this offline, but basically this is on Wikipedia. This is the synopsis of the episode. Approximately 30 years after returning from 30,000 AD, Ash Williams, Bruce Campbell, now lives in a home trailer. He goes to a local bar where he has sex with a woman in a restroom. During the act, the woman's face turns into a demon vintage for a brief moment. A demon vintage. This is Wikipedia's synopsis. Disturbing Ash. And that's it for the episode. That's a synopsis. It's not a great one. But anyways, let's do a scene by scene. You know, we'll talk about, you know, all of. I've got some notes and my favorite points of the scene that I want to bring up. So we start with Ash in his trailer with a ton of close-ups of him getting ready with Space Truckin' playing in the background. We now see Ash 30 years later as an overweight old man, sporting a girdle and missing his right hand. He's still clearly paying for the troubles he went through all them years ago, maybe even a little bit crazy. He then says, "Don't wait up for daddy," to Eli, his bearded dragon, as he's grabbing some protection. He's out to get lucky tonight, goes out the door, but not without his wooden hand. So this scene's definitely a great way to start the show. You know, there was a lot of directions they could have went into with reintroducing Ash after all these years. You know, maybe we could have seen him as a more experienced person, you know, an action-ready guy. You know, he's ready to go out. He's been fighting evil for 30 years. And we're just starting off with him being a complete badass. However, they did a really smart thing here and did a great misdirection to the viewers, having all the close-ups of him, like, you know, tying his girdle around his waist and stuff. And where maybe he's thinking, oh, right, he's going out to fight some Deadites, but no, he's tightening his girdle up, and, you know, it's tragic and hilarious at the same time. You know, I think Sam and Bruce did a great job creating an older Ash as well. Probably one viewers weren't expecting to see after 30 years. And yeah, like I said, it's just a great way to open up the show, because you're seeing the more comedy side of things and the hilarious side of things, rather than, you know, being all serious and action oriented. So it is a good scene for that. Ash then heads to a bar in the classic Oldsmobile, the Delta. Enters the bar and throws a dart very cockily towards the dartboard and misses. This is just classic Bruce Campbell. You know, you watched Burn Notice. If you watched anything else that he's in, particularly Burn Notice is probably his other popular TV show. He's always got that kind of presence about him. Every scene that he's in, he's just like the cocky guy. You know, he's like, he doesn't give a shit, but, you know, he's going to be cocky about it and try and flaunt his abilities that he doesn't really have. So, you know, that's just classic Bruce Campbell right there. You know, people always see, sorry, I missed a bit there. Then goes on to chat up a lady at the bar. You know, people always say you shouldn't put your hand in front of a speeding train, but what people don't know is sometimes there's an 8-year-old boy stuck on the tracks. Cut to Ash having a romantic time in the woman's bathroom with the lady, who in the heat of the moment transitions into a Deadite. "We're coming for you." Even though Ash is spooked by what happened, they decide to finish. Now, I don't know about you, but, you know, if you're having a bit of sexy time in the bathroom and someone turns around, comes a Deadite in your face, you're like, yeah, I'm getting out of there. I ain't about to finish that job, you know what I mean? I ain't gonna die over this. But, you know, Bruce and Ash decide to take the risk, and that's where it goes. But I love the quote when he's chatting up the woman, saying, you know, sometimes people don't know there's an 8-year-old boy stuck on the tracks, and, you know, you shouldn't put your hand in front of a speeding train. The scenery, you know, just for that scene there, the scenery, the lighting in the bar it's just something I love about the entire show. You know, it's not just to this scene really. You know, you've got all the neon lights, the 80s aesthetic feel to the show as well, the cinematography. It's just all fantastic, and that's brought in mainly in season 2 a lot more, as you'll notice when we're back in Elk Grove and stuff, which we'll get to. You know, you'll see all the lighting and everything that I'm talking about. It just really brings a horror 80s vibe to the show with a modern feel to it as well, which is fantastic. The outfit of Ash and just the entire messed up comedy horror this scene offers is just a great one as well. But yeah, you know, Ash sporting that leather jacket, it's one of the ones we've always wanted in the game as well. You know, you could go through this whole TV show. I'll definitely point out some outfits that I think should have made it in the game, and that's definitely one of them, the red leather jacket. Ash then heads back to his trailer to see the Necronomicon and finds his weed stash in there. Wondering how it got there, we get a flashback of him and a woman getting high, saying she loves poetry. Ash thinks he's got the best poetry right here, and comes the Necronomicon, which they then read from it. This is a pretty different Ash 30 years later. He's kept the book all the time, knowing how dangerous it was. As time went on, I guess Ash became more and more carefree about it. You know, he just started thinking, nah, whatever, it's never going to happen again. But, you know, he just keep the book just to, I guess, to show off to people. This is already a great way to set up the show, honestly. We've seen Ash make the mistake of releasing the Evil Dead, and it's all done in like 6 minutes. You know, some of these TV shows, they start branching off the things, you know, they'll do a whole side story of like, oh, this person's becoming a Deadite, and, you know, then we're just having a slow build up, and you know, this is the beauty of this show, is how short it is and everything's just condensed, and it's like, we're not stupid. You know, we know what's going to happen here. We know why the Deadites are turning up. It's obviously somebody read from the Necronomicon, and we showed that Ash read from the Necronomicon. That's why they showed up. You know, we don't have to have all these different side stories to bring us to the point. You know, like I said, it's all done in 6 minutes, and now there we go. We've got the premise of the show. We got the premise of the season, I guess, and just to see what direction we're going to go in, and that's you know, set up really well. At a remote house in the woods, Detective Amanda Fisher and her partner John Carson are called in to investigate a distress call. They enter the house and split up. Fisher finds a corpse in the kitchen, frozen in horror, while Carson finds a weeping woman who turns out to be the same woman who read from the Necronomicon with Ash. She suddenly gets taken over by a Deadite and starts fighting officers, stabbing Amanda with a pair of scissors in the right hand, and Carson manages to blow off half of her head with a shotgun. Things get really crazy in this scene. I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite scenes, which we'll talk about in a minute. But the Deadite gets up and impales him on a pair of mounted deer antlers on the wall. Amanda kills the monster with a backup revolver, but notices that her parents' body is missing. Noticing that her partner's body is missing. I thought it said parents there. I typed this up, you know, I typed it up really quick, so, you know... Not like I'd have to read my own handwriting, because this would be terrible. And noticing him crawling on the ceiling and possessed, she attempts to shoot him, but Carson drops down on her and briefly reverts back to human form, mocking her before getting his head blown off as well. So just a few things about this scene. Obviously, we have the guest stars, a couple of guest stars here. We have Marissa Stott as the tattoo girl, which I believe is the one that read from the Necronomicon with Ash, obviously. I think she did a great job. You know, she's got a couple of scenes. She's not in it more than, you know, a couple of minutes. And, you know, I feel like these people have just turned up and done really well for what they have to work with. And then we also have Mike Edward as Carson, who is Amanda's partner. And again, he's actually like one of my, you know, favorite characters from the show. He doesn't get a lot to go on, but, you know, just the way his acting stood out in terms of, like, you're just being brought in to do Evil Dead, and you're thinking, all right, do I have to play this in a serious role? You know, what am I doing here? Obviously, Sam Raimi is really good at directing people and telling them how they should be acting, and, you know, that you need to be acting a little bit crazy, a little bit fun, and, you know, a little bit serious at the same time, and a little bit scary. So, you know, he's definitely picked a good person to be able to do this in just a couple of scenes, especially when you don't have a lot of setup to go off on. You know, this is like, you know, 8-10 minutes into the pilot, and yeah, I think he's done really well. But when I first watched the show, this scene hit me really hard. The scene that immediately got me grasped to the TV show. You know, it shows the horror of the franchise that it has to offer. You know, it kind of gives me, you know, for lack of a better comparison, Resident Evil vibes. You know, you kind of pulling up to a mansion. You know, it's all in the darkness, and, you know, they've got the flashlights with their weapons and stuff. It looks really badass, and the CGI and the effects are really good. What they use in these scenes. And the guy who played Carson, like I said, did a great job for such a little role in the episode. And then, you know, at the end, when he's talking and mocking to Amanda, he's like, "I need you to die." Like, I love that part. The next morning, a horrified Ash leaves his trailer and calls Lionel Hawkins, an expert on occult literature, asking him to help him translate passages from the Necronomicon that would stop the Deadites from coming after him. He asks his elderly neighbor Vivian to tidy up his trailer while he's gone. Well, suddenly he hears the ghostly voice calling him, and calling him name again. I don't know how I typed this up. He hears the ghostly voice calling his name and sees Vivian briefly being possessed. Believing it's only his imagination, he goes to Value Stop to pick up his paycheck to skip town afterwards. Unfortunately for Ash, his boss, Mr. Roper, refuses to let him leave and tells him to get back to work. Ash's younger Honduran co-worker, Pablo, offers him to watch wrestling in the evening, but his older friend refuses and tells him that it's probably his last day at the job, which upsets Pablo because he brought in his neighbor Kelly to work at the store. Ash clumsily attempts to flirt with Kelly, but she lets him know she's not interested in his sleazy charm. Now, for those little scenes there, I think they're great. Again, you know, setting up Ash, you know, kind of being scared of, like, oh, what's going on here? You know, I want to take my Necronomicon to the guy. Maybe he's a little bit of a plot hole here, because obviously Ash wants to send the Deadites back, but he's also going to Value Stop to skip his to skip town as well at the same time. So I don't know if he's gonna go drop the Necronomicon off and then skip town, but yeah, it's like is he doing two different things here? Again, maybe Ash doesn't even know himself what he's doing, of course. The same way he's asking Vivian if she can look after the trail is pretty funny as well. You know, it's like, really get in there, clean up the waste pipe. Mr. Roper. So in this scene, Mr. Roper comes out with a retard quote, which I thought was pretty funny. He's like, listen, retard, and I can say retard because my garden is a huge one. Again, a guest star that's brought in just to be funny and, you know, a pain in the ass, but he does a really good job of that. I will say with these scenes, you know, Ash smashing all the light bulbs was a bit, was a little bit unneeded, you know, to see how much of a fuck up he really is. Obviously, we've just seen how much of a sleazy old guy he already is. You know, he's a stock boy. We don't really need to see him picking up bulbs and, you know, having a little bit of a slapstick comedy thing there. That just, for me, didn't really fit into the show too much, but. And we don't see a lot of that throughout the series. I just thought, you know, it's one of those scenes that when I'm watching about it always kind of just like, can we not do this? But, you know, I guess it was a way to bring in Pablo into the show, and, you know, Kelly's dialogue with Ash, the quote, filthy and fine, is born from this section as well. And, you know, the casting of Dana and Pablo is probably on point. You know, you can't always rely on Bruce Campbell and Ash, as we've come to realize with Evil Dead. And creating these other characters, especially ones that are like badass, and the way they've brought the characters to life is really, really well done. And we'll get into that a little bit towards the end of the podcast. We'll talk about Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell's DVD commentary that, you know, I've rewatched the episode twice, once for myself and once to hear the DVD commentary. So, you know, I got some notes from there. You guys might have not heard of it. So, you know, it's a few little interesting facts about the show in the episode itself. So at a diner in town, Amanda is still recovering from last night's events when she briefly sees a little girl possessed by a Deadite. She tries to think her mind is playing a trick on her, but a mysterious woman from a nearby booth tells her what she thinks she saw is exactly what she saw. I love that we don't really need this character's backstory too much about Amanda. You know, obviously we've got the first scene. Obviously she's a detective. You know, she's in the diner. The cops are kind of thinking like, oh, she killed her partner or whatever. But, you know, it's just a quick little backstory, you know, quick little dialogues here and there. You know, she's obviously friends with the diner owner that comes over and pours her coffee out and gives her some advice. And, you know, that's just quick little things like that. That's all we need. And it makes you feel like we've known these characters for a while. You know, it establishes the character as an actual person rather than it being so forced and focused on and wasting a lot of screen time doing that, which is great. And then in comes Lucy Lawless. I think this is the only scene in the episode with Lucy Lawless, unfortunately, but we're kind of thinking, who's this mysterious woman again? Which is, you know, that's the whole point of a TV show. You know, you just got to leave us with questions, and, you know, we can't wait to watch the next one. While cleaning up at the storehouse, Ash is attacked by a little Laurie doll, but Pablo saves him from it by crushing it with a shovel. Ash decides to tell his friend about the events from 30 years ago, and Pablo mentions his shaman uncle called El Brujo. At that, one man, El Jefe, will stop the evil, believing Ash is him. Ash declines it and attempts to back to his trail. I don't know, like, okay, so I wrote some of this. Some of this is I just pulled from the internet as a scene by scene, but whoever typed this up is probably worse than me. Ash declines and attempts to go back to his trailer. They're missing out some words here. Kelly is talking with her father on the phone when suddenly she sees her deceased mother on camera and realizes he may be in serious trouble. Pablo decides to help her despite Mr. Roper's protest, but first takes her to Ash's trailer. So the camera work on the shown which the doll was, which doll was possessed. I thought that was really cool. If you notice, they do a close-up of the doll, and there's like a depth of field used here to blur out all the other dolls apart from that one that stays in focus. So then you know which one is possessed, which I think is a really nice way that they did that. It just stood out to me in the warehouse scene. CGI Pablo Shovel was a bit iffy, honestly. It literally looked like something just pulled straight out of Who Framed Roger Rabbit. The flashbacks of the movie shown on the boxes in the warehouse was great as well. It was a nice little backstory for people who haven't actually watched the movies. You know, it doesn't really feel forced because he's explaining it to another character. You know, it's a nice way of actually bringing people up to speed what happened with Ash. of course, I do feel like it was a little bit weird that Pablo is with Ash, and Pablo was obviously with his uncle, who always talked about the evil and the demons, and just all of a sudden he's somehow working at Value Stop with the guy who's meant to stop it all. It's a little bit out there, you know. Maybe we've got to just suspend some disbelief about it, but that's just what I guess is the beauty of the show. They just want to keep things flowing. We don't want to have too much backstory going on, which is great. So yeah, it might be fate that Pablo met Ash. We also get to see some of the classic Sam Raimi camera work for the evil, trying to get Kelly on the bike, and Pablo with the fastest wardrobe change in history, by the way. He's wearing his Value Stop outfit. Kelly runs outside. She's trying to start the motorbike. Then about, 30 seconds later, Pablo's got a whole new outfit on. So that's an interesting one. Amanda goes back to the house where Carson dies and inspects it, finding a piece of Carson's shirt on the antlers and confirming that what happened last night was definitely real. Pablo and Kelly arrive to Ash's trailer where they ask him to help her father, but he refuses, and Deadite attacks the trailer and grabs Kelly by the throat, attempting to crush it, and Ash helps her out by chopping the demon's arm off with a thrown axe. His demeanor changes as he stops being sleazy aging man and becomes a confident one-liner spewing badass. Quickly dispatching the Deadite with his boomstick, Kelly asks him again to come help her father, but he declines and says he has to deal with the Necronomicon first and to save a lot more people. He goes to get his chainsaw when a Deadite possessed Vivian attacks him, briefly knocking him out and pinning Pablo to the wall with a knife. This was absolutely awesome, by the way. She attempts to gouge Kelly's eyes out with her fingers. When Ash gets up and tries to help, Pablo tosses him the chainsaw with his leg, and Ash cuts Vivian's head off, proclaiming that he is back and that he feels groovy. One of the standout scenes throughout the entire season, honestly, and throughout the whole series, should I say. When you say Ash vs. Evil Dead, that's probably one of them, if not the scene that you think of immediately when you say Ash vs. Evil Dead. The trailer scene in the pilot was just so well done. Some badass takes from it. I've got some notes written down from that. Like I said, probably one of the best scenes in the whole TV show. When people say Ash vs. Evil Dead, of course, like I said, they think of this scene. Ash finally coming back to who he was, and what a badass way to do it. So, obviously, you've transitioned from this sleazy old man, overweight man, wearing false teeth and everything, to then, switching to being a badass. And, just what a way to do it. He's grabbing hold of Kelly's belt. He's ripping Kelly's belt off. Kelly, it seemed to get a little bit of hots for Ash when he did that, and he's putting his harness around him and his holster, and again, just a really cool way to do it, and probably the best way to bring him back and showing who Ash really is. And of course, he has his one-liners as well. He goes, I'm pretty sure Mama should have told you to knock, or something, when he's blowing the Deadite's brains out with the boomstick. And Kelly seems to, is a quite scared girl, despite obviously being able to hand herself. As we've seen earlier on when Ash was trying to flirt with her in Value Stop, she pushes Ash onto the counter, and says, "You're going to need another wooden hand." She seems like she can handle herself, but as soon as she gets attacked, she's like a scared girl, and obviously being able to, you think that she would be able to handle herself. And of course, Pablo is there to push Ash to become an El Jefe, and the chainsaw throwing, and, he throws the chainsaw at Ash, and this part always cracks me up because, it's just so over the top, it's so ridiculous, but that is Evil Dead. And, he's doing a Superman dive, then all of a sudden he's just, vertical. And but also, that's the end of the episode. And honestly, there's just so much going on in those 40 minutes, and it's just so well told. Like I said, there's not a lot of backstory being thrown in there. The 40 minutes of watching this just flies by every single time, because you're just skipping at one scene after the other of some very interesting stuff that's going on, and the struggles of the main character, and pulling in some supporting characters there. And of course, at the end of every episode, I'm going to be counting how many times Ash gets covered in blood. And in this one, it's just one. So at the end, when he chainsaws Vivian, he gets covered in blood. So we'll do some interesting things to note for the episode as well. We'll go through your guys' opinions as well. We're going to have a little Sporter thought section, because Sporter typed out a very long review for me, which I do appreciate. And of course, I got all your guys' comments from the community post. And if you guys ever want to leave a comment about an episode, if you want to join in on the rewatch, just catch up to where we're at right now. And be sure to leave me a comment on my community post that I will be putting out every week for you guys to get your reviews to me, or you can send me a message on Discord. You can come join the Discord. The link is in the description for the Discord as well, and just have a little discussion there. And it's just something nice and something chill and something fun to do. And I've been really excited to get this out here because I've spent a bit of time creating the new introduction that you'll see at the start of the podcast. Obviously, I've got the new logo, the merch, and everything. I really wanted to take this somewhere. And, not just necessarily leave it to Ash vs. Evil Dead. We could go back and watch a bunch of horror movies and, TV shows, some that I've never even watched. Maybe I can go and watch, for the movie, for the sake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I could go back and watch some, the Leatherface one and stuff, the one I've never watched, and and just give my thoughts and opinions about that, and we can have a little discussion about it. So, the future of this podcast is entirely up to you guys, really. If it doesn't get enough support, I'm not, I'm going to definitely see this out up till season 3, until the end of season 3, but if it doesn't get enough support, obviously, I just won't continue to do it. But any support is greatly appreciated. Like I said, you can become a member of the channel, leave a comment down below, hit the subscribe button, and it'll always be very helpful for me. So let's jump into the interesting things to note. So for the DVD commentary, I typed all this out myself. So Sam Raimi says Army of Darkness didn't have a lot of fans or viewers to create a sequel. So through the DVD, television, and cable, the show, Evil Dead, the franchise, and Ash gained a lot of its fan base compared to back in the 90s and the 80s. They had a lot of ideas for Evil Dead 4, but they couldn't settle on one. Then they had an idea that they could do a lot more on television with the character. After Sam and Bruce worked on the remake, they talked to one of the producers on the movie. They worked with in creating the sequel. They talked to one of the producers on the movie, who then suggested, oh, should we make a sequel for this? And the guy's response was, no, you should create a TV show. Ivan Raimi thought that he was nuts saying that, because back then they were like, oh, Evil Dead is a TV show, that's kind of wild. And then like a few years later, they can say, oh yeah, I can see it happening. So in the 2013 remake, that's when they were having some discussions about making a sequel to that remake, which I wouldn't have been really against. It's not a terrible remake. It's not everyone's favorite Evil Dead movie, of course, but it has its moments, and of course we do have Bruce as a cameo at the end of that movie. But I just thought that was quite interesting, that they were in that topic of discussion with one of the producers on that remake about creating a sequel to it and saying no, go for a TV show. They had a draft of Ash traveling across country to promote his documentary of what happened to him and his story in Evil Dead 4. Which I thought was a pretty interesting thing. I thought that would be a funny way to continue the Evil Dead 4 storyline. If we did get Evil Dead 4, is what of Ash traveling across the country to promote his documentary about what happened in the cabin all those years ago. There was also a draft about Ash versus the Machines. Again, they thought that might have been way too out of budget or anything like that, so they never went ahead of doing that. But there was another version that they had planned for it. They wanted to keep the episode short of the TV show because they believe the audience had a shorter attention span for what we wanted to do with the comedy horror. Bruce says there was a lot of complaints about the show being too short, but he thinks it was good because it left them wanting more. And I have to agree with this. I feel like if this show had 40-minute episodes every single time, or 45-minute episodes every single episode, sure, I love Evil Dead, I'd love to get them out, but I feel like when you're going that long on a TV show, and yeah, it only has 10 episodes a season, but it's about 5 hours, and it feels like every single episode is like a little mini movie, I guess you could say. It's so well shot, it's so well acted, it's so well done and well thought out, to where if you have that, trying to put that to 45 minutes every single episode, some of the stuff's going to get watered down, the quality's not going to be as good. And again, I suppose it's all a budget thing as well, so then you'd have to take budget out from one episode to another episode. And that's another interesting thing about it. It was a great time to do the TV show because of Bruce Campbell's experience in other shows as well. Like I said, he was in Burn Notice and Briscoe County. He was in Xena. He did a lot more TV shows after Army of Darkness and stuff like that. So he obviously worked in television a lot more. He had more experience, so that's why it was a great time to finally do a TV show of Ash vs. Evil Dead. Stars made a complaint about Ash not handling his shotgun correctly, but Bruce said, no, that's Ash. He has no training. It's meant to be bad. They had a teleplay of Ash stealing adult diapers from Value Stop, since he's an old guy now. So that was another scene that they were toying with about incompetence and things. Is that the right word? Incompetence? Probably. I'm not sure. Netflix weren't interested in Ash vs. Evil Dead, so they actually reached out to Netflix because Evil Dead was one of the top horror rentals on Netflix at the time. You know, and Netflix just weren't interested in it, so they went with stars who they previously worked with on other things. You know, Ivan Raimi and that definitely worked with stars before. They had to fight. They had to fight the young, intelligent people at the top at Stars to not change anything in the show because they wanted to keep it all in homage to the franchise. They didn't want to upset the fan base. They didn't want to upset the viewers, you know, and, you know, these all of a sudden little goody two shoes, we're not going to enjoy it too much. So they really wanted to keep it to pay homage to the Evil Dead franchise. They were fortunate it was on Stars because it gets no rating restrictions that way. And also it has no adverts. Like we said before about the episodes playing short. You know, it was better to write around, not having to write around commercials, because you'll see it in TV shows like Smallville, Arrow, you know, all those long-going TV shows, the ones that aren't on streaming now, like everything's on streaming these days. Obviously, it's like 8 to 10 episodes a season, which is fine. But you find that they're probably in better quality as well because the writers don't have to write around adverts. You know, there's no advert cuts. That's why Evil Dead plays so flawlessly. Ash vs. Evil Dead just plays so flawlessly throughout the entire episode. You know, there's no cut arounds commercials. It's always like you know, you get to the point of like, hey, I've kidnapped your son, dun dun dun, and it goes to adverts. You know, they don't have to write around doing stupid stuff like that, so they can just kind of play it out like a movie or a short movie, and that's how it's done well. And that's why they were they believe they were very fortunate to be on Stars, because it just didn't have any adverts, and again, no rating restrictions, so they could pretty much do what they wanted. They ended up filming this in New Zealand as well, because it was financially better for the show, instead of shooting in Michigan, which is where they originally wanted to shoot, but because it was so expensive, they figured out it's actually cheaper going to shoot in New Zealand. The editor of Army of Darkness and The Hurt Locker worked on this as well, which I believe his name was Bob something. He also, as Bruce says in the DVD commentary, he won an Academy Award. Bridget Hoffman was an OG poster girl. So Bridget Hoffman, who voiced the little Laurie doll, who I said she did some voices in the Spider-Verse and Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. She was also an OG poster girl for Evil Dead. As you can see on the OG poster of Evil Dead, there's a hand coming out the grave trying to grab her and pulling her into the grave. That's actually Bruce's hand as well, and she was the woman on it. So it was hard to get hold of Lucy Lawless in this because she was working on Salem at the time as well. The script for the pilot was only 42 pages long. There was a cupcake scene with Pablo and Kelly establishing a relationship. It got cut because they wanted to focus more on Ash and how his character was going to transition, which, again, this is why, you know, things are so short with Ash vs. Evil Dead. You know, they could have done all this type of stuff, this character backstory. Sure, it would have been a little bit interesting, but, you know, we don't really need it to be whole drama focused as well. Again, everything just kind of naturally happens. You know, you start feeling for these characters naturally, of their actions and what's happening throughout the story and plot. We don't need these little scenes of gathering backstory and building the characters up too much, which is great. Ray and Dana weren't a strong choice. Weren't a strong choice by the characters by Rob, who is a producer for the show, but respected Sam's decision on them as well. They also loved Ray Santiago's audition for Pablo, saying he was like an innocent younger guy that had a lot of believable spirit, and how he feels like he really believes in Bruce Campbell or Ash. When Ray first got splattered, he just burst out in hysterical laughter. So the first time he ever got hit by a blood splatter, it literally just made him laugh. So when Bruce seen that, he then knew he'd be okay with shooting with him, because he was worried they'd end up with an actor who was going to kick off and constantly ask for a towel. I mean, I feel like Bruce is that person, right? He always complained, you know, he's just getting sick of getting covered in gore, and he was a miserable guy filming Ash vs. Evil Dead all the time. You know, that's just in some interviews that he has done previously, he has talked about that. But yeah, I can understand that. You know, you kind of want the freedom and to explore and to be creative behind the scenes, and to be a lot more relaxed with the person that you're acting with, and you don't want someone who's kind of stuck up, you know, especially, you know, Bruce says, okay, since he's comfortable with, you know, just having blood splattered onto him constantly, that means I can have more freedom acting with him and, you know, getting away with things that, you know, isn't on a script, basically. So that's kind of how things work with certain actors as well. Sam and Bruce went up to help Lucy Lawless on Xena. Then on this show, Lucy was the one calming Bruce down on this. Rob, the producer, believed the show would have gone on for 5 seasons. So this was when I was listening to DVD commentary on the first episode. The producer went, I can see this going for 5 seasons if they let us. And sadly, that didn't happen, as we all know. There's only 3 seasons. And I've got a few more. So in the end scene, Dana worked really hard for the choreography for it to look real as possible in the fight scene. The end of Army of Darkness was going to have the same ending song as the pilot. Also was in a temp track mix for the Spider-Man movies too, as Sam Raimi pointed out. This is some trivia pulled from IMDb. The American flag in front of the store has 48 stars on it. I'm not sure why that's trivia. Is it meant to be 49? I don't know. I'm not from the States. This is the first episode to be directed by the creator of The Evil Dead himself, Sam Raimi. I'm not sure why that's trivia. Books from Beyond, so this is the guy that Ash calls up. The address is 1973 Olds Road. Ash's car is a 1973 Oldsmobile Delta 88, the same car as in Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness. The title of the episode, El Jefe, translates to the chief or the boss. The episode closes with Ash's famous quote, groovy. The song playing in this episode's credit is Journey to the Center of the Mind by the Amboy Dukes. So there you go. That's interesting things to note from this episode. Like, I thought it was really cool, like, you know, listening to the soundtrack at the end. You know, he had plans for that for Army of Darkness, but they actually couldn't afford that to put it in the movie. So he was also planning on putting it in Spider-Man, but he didn't do that either. So this is Sporter's notes. So Sporter typed me out his whole review, which we'll talk about here as well, which is I'm excited to read it. I didn't read everything, but I read it through real quick, and yeah, it was pretty cool. She said, my thoughts on episode 1, El Jefe. This is an excellent pilot episode for a TV show. As a fan of the Evil Dead movies before this show was released, I was both nervous and excited to jump back into the universe once again. But I was questioning if this would live up to the movies and the way they handled the world of Evil Dead, but I can safely say it definitely doesn't disappoint. As I said, it's getting that first scene right, and the way they did it with the misdirection, I think it was probably the best way they could have started the show off, honestly. Man, I did a lot of talking. Sorry, I might chop a few things out here. I'm just grabbing a drink to refresh my throat. Firstly, I love the songs and how they incorporated it into pop culture media, and I thought the song choice, Space Truckin' by Deep Purple, was a brilliant one to open the series as it fits Ash's character to a T, and these song choices continue to stay relevant and core to the Ash's character and others throughout the show. I totally agree. Even in the DVD commentary, Bruce and Sam were saying they absolutely love the soundtrack to the show because it was like, you know, they try to pull in a lot of old Michigan bands and everything, because that's where they obviously want the show set, in Michigan, because that's where they're from. So they try to pull in all these different bands from there into the soundtrack as well. So that's why it's got such a good soundtrack too. Speaking of Ash, though, both Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell do a fantastic job at creating a more older Ash, making him different in the way he looks at life now, especially after everything he's been through from the movies. But despite having that different take on the character, they managed to keep it the same comedy and characteristics. He finds himself within the likes of Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness. Campbell is just amazing in this role, and nobody could ever replace him. Right? Nobody can replace Bruce Campbell in this. Maybe no, let's not go there. Remember, everyone wanted to try and fan cast CM Punk as Ash. Like, that was kind of ridiculous, but yeah, I mean, I totally agree with all that. I said that with that scene as well at the start. You know, Sam and Bruce did a really good job of developing an older Ash and how he is 30 years later. Beyond the Ash character, I also thought they really executed the world building nicely in this pilot. It reestablishes the Necronomicon for both new fans and original fans. The way it comes back into the story is the most Ash thing as well. Additionally, we are introduced to many new characters that we will be following, and they are all very likable from the get-go, which is difficult to pull off in 40 minutes. By the end of the episode, that's what I said before, there's no fluff. You know, they're making the characters by their actions and how they're reacting to things rather than pushing a lot of backstory, and you know, they're making them likable just from the scenes itself. They don't need to be typing a whole biography and doing all, you know, we got Kelly's story over here, we got Pablo's story over here, we've got Amanda's story over here. No, we've got Ash with Pablo and Kelly. They can develop together. Then we have Amanda and obviously Lucy Lawless, which we'll get into further into the season and how they establish in a relationship and how they, you know, progress. So it's very well done because, like I said, like you said as well, difficult to pull off in 40 minutes, but they do such a good job of it because they keep everything kind of clumped together, but they do it in such a good way. By the end of the episode, you care about the iconic trio Ash, Kelly, and Pablo, and you want to know where they go next. While on topic, the runtime for the episodes in the show is phenomenal. It's not too long and not too short, while getting straight to the point with little to no filler. Exactly what I've been talking about. When it comes to cinematography, direction, and other technical aspects, Sam Raimi still has it with this universe. He keeps the same shots that fans of the movies will be able to identify, such as the iconic tracking POV shot, for example, with the camera. Yeah, that's again classic Sam Raimi, and I don't know what it is. He always seems to get the right angles down that just you can watch anything, and if you didn't know who the director was, you know, you can sit there and sometimes you'll go, oh yeah, that's Tim Burton. Oh yeah, that's Christopher Nolan, and you'll sit there and oh yeah, that's Sam Raimi to a T, right? Like they have that style, and yeah, he definitely pulls it off for Evil Dead. However, there's even some new angles and directions that Raimi takes on that can be seen in future episodes as well, which I appreciate. It shows the evolution in his work as a director from the very beginning of Evil Dead 1 and barely scraping through with a college fun and just having fun with it. Now he takes his craft more seriously and to larger heights while maintaining the aspects that make him a unique director and recognized in the horror scene. I'd like to see Sam Raimi doing some more horror stuff, honestly. I know he's done a couple of things recently. I know he did Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, obviously, and you can feel a lot of Evil Dead in that. A lot of Evil Dead in that. So Spoder's favorite scene, hands down, has to be the final one with Ash fighting in his RV. Not just because of the campy and the bloody action that carries over from the movies, but I see it as an ultimate revival of Ash. Throughout the episode, it's repeatedly told to the other characters in the audience by Ash that he's done being a man, being the man he once was, and he wants to move on. But him realizing that he has no choice but to return to those roots, getting suited up in the iconic blue with the chainsaw and the boomstick ready was just so satisfying to see unfold. And I loved how his quips started coming out as soon as he was reborn, just straight up badass and hilarious at all time. Yeah, like when we were doing the scene by scene and, you know, pulling that out of, like, you know, Ash turns into the one line and badass immediately. It's just like something just switches in his brain. He's like, there you go, I'm back. As you know, Ash from the end of Evil Dead 2 Army of Darkness era, and he's there, you know, but as an older guy, and he's kind of more sarcastic and, you know, all that stuff going on with him, which is just great. Overall, this is just really solid television, and it only continues to escalate in quality and enjoyment. A really strong showing from Sam Raimi, continuing to reinstate and prove why he's one of the best to do it in the world of horror, and how he is ultimately is and always be a pioneer for the genre. Also, I believe Sporter give this a 10 out of 10 rating. I mean, yeah, so he gave his, I missed off the rating on here, but he gave it a 10 out of 10. In terms of a rating system on this show, on this podcast, I'm not too sure what I'm going to go for. You know, maybe we'll do like 3 chainsaws and is good. And then we'll go for the negatives, which will be boomsticks, I guess. So, and down the middle, we'll give that a pink fuck. Yeah. So 0 is a pink fuck, and then it goes 1, 2, 3 chainsaws, and -1, 2, and 3 will be boomsticks. So I feel like that'll be a good way to rate this TV show. At the end, I'll give you guys my rating. I'm just gonna read through some more, but I appreciate Sporto giving me all your thoughts there. Give me more to think about as well. When I was reading through that there. And, you know, I feel like me and you definitely picked out a lot of the same things that we noticed while we were watching the show as well, which is, you know, the cinematography and the direction of the characters and everything like that, and the runtime of it. So this is from Marcus. His favorite scene in the first episode is when Ash had a flashback with some girl and they accidentally read the Necronomicon and he realized that he fucked up badly. Yeah, again, it's a really nice scene. It's a quick way of, like, figuring out what went wrong, you know, and again, it's just Bruce Campbell being Ash, and yeah, you know, he's smoking weed. You know, they want to read some poetry, then he reads from the fucking Necronomicon of all things. I would like to see more of that character. The tattoo girl, I feel like we didn't really, you know, he was just hanging out with her. You know, was there anything sexual going on there? Was there, you know, it's just, I would have liked to seen a little bit more of her. I know she was used and taking out Amanda's partner in that section, but you know, I feel like maybe we could have seen a little bit more. But yeah, not a bad use of the character by any means. Panzer Slayer says the entire trailer fight gets me cackling and giggling every time, seeing Pablo and Kelly's reaction to Deadite. Ash going from zero to hero, stealing Kelly's belt to utilize as his holster. The axe throw, the cabinet boomstick headshot, and the entire granny fight. And to top it all off, we get a groovy. It's just so hype, man. Yeah, again, like we've said before, that opening, that ending scene is definitely one that people just pull in their mind immediately when you say Ash vs Evil Dead, because it's just so well done. And you know, it's just all in one setting as well. You know, it's just in his trailer. That's it. It's just a little trailer fight scene, and they do it so well that it's one of the most iconic scenes from the TV show, which is incredible. So we have Tony the Red here as well. Tony the Red. Ash throwing that dart, thinking he's all cool, walking into the barn, totally misses the board, gets a good laugh out of me every time. Bruce does it so good. Yeah, like I said, that's just classic Bruce Campbell. He's so cocky. Like, he just wants to go into a room. I'm the cocky guy, but I don't have the ability to do it. And that, yeah, he just pulls it off so well, and it makes me laugh every time I see it too. Grayson the Goosebumps Kid says Ash having friends that actually stick with him through the rest of the show is one thing I will always love about it. In the movies, he tends to be the last man standing, but he now actually has friends to help him defeat the Deadites instead of just being there for a body count. Pablo and Kelly are great. I know what you mean. So many characters are coming to help Ash before they've just immediately turned into Deadites. I think, was it the end of Evil Dead 2? Was it Annie? Was Annie the one that... Did Annie survive at the end of Evil Dead 2? I'd have to go back and watch it. I know she survived... Like, she gets stabbed in the back, right? By Ed, I believe. But she still helps Ash at the end. But then Ash obviously gets traveled back. So, I don't know if Annie survived in that one. But I know what you mean. Like, a lot of them are just cannon fodder, right? The little collateral damage and... You know, actually having characters like Kelly and Pablo, there's some things, some plot holes and things that we'll get into in later episodes that I know is coming up, which we will talk about. That's always bothered me. But yeah, having Pablo and Kelly there, characters that when you watch the whole season, you believe they can take over this franchise and we don't need Ash anymore. You have characters like Kelly and Pablo there, they can definitely take it further than it could have been. Anyways, thank you for the comment, Grayson. D89, Amanda's role was definitely set up to be more than what it turned out. I believe that as well. Obviously, we'll get further into the season here, and we'll talk more about Amanda's role and how underutilized she was, I guess, and she definitely could have been better. Not that the actress played her terrible or anything. Like, I think she was really good as Amanda. It's just the way she was written, I think, could have been a lot better as well. Johnny Gomez, I don't know if you feel this way, Pixels, but whenever I go back and rewatch the show, I can't help but feel like Amanda Fisher was one of the weakest and most wasted characters in the season 1. She had so much potential, but her arc felt rushed and underdeveloped, especially with that forced romance angle with Ash that came out of nowhere. Spoilers for everyone. I just don't get the point of her character. It feels like she was set up to be something significant, but in the end, her role just didn't really amount to much. I agree. I would like to have seen more Amanda, and you know, we'll get to the season finale, or I think it's not even the season finale. I think it's episode 9. Once we get to episode 9, we'll talk about it a lot more and her character. But yeah, I mean, Amanda is one of my favorite characters from the show. I wish we could have seen a lot more of him. Yeah, it's a shame what really happens to the character, but we'll talk about that when we get to it a little bit more. But appreciate your comment there. Snake Eyes Volley says Ash being the cause of evil because of his stupidity is always hilarious. Yeah, again, that's the comedy horror aspect of Evil Dead. This is why I feel like, okay, so let's talk about this real quick. So obviously, I'm not a huge fan of the. I mean, I like the remake. The remake's okay. I'm not a huge fan of the Evil Dead Rise. I'm not a huge fan of that. I know it has Bruce working on it and all that, but you know, it's a good horror movie. It's just, it's not Evil Dead. And what is Evil Dead is someone being an idiot and releasing evil and somehow managing to defeat them. You know, that's the premises of it. You know, there's obviously a lot more to it than that, but you know, it doesn't necessarily always have to be Ash. But I would like to see characters that are being brought into doing Evil Dead Rise, new directors and stuff, to have some fun with it. Don't be so serious. It needs to be over the top and ridiculous. That's how it works with Evil Dead. Because if you try and do something else, sure, you're trying to probably cater to a new crowd of people, but people like there's still people picking up Ash vs. Evil Dead today and becoming a new fan of the franchise and even picking up the game again. And you know what happened to the game? It's just a massive shame what happened to that. But like this is the thing. What they need to start getting right with Evil Dead is, yeah, we're all tied to Bruce Campbell a lot, but the reason is you haven't really given us anybody else that's been that type of, I mean, obviously you couldn't replace him, but you haven't even reached that in these movies. Pablo and Kelly could do it. Not as good, but they could still do it. They could still carry it. You know, characters like Beth and Mia, no. I think they tried it a little bit with Beth, but all they did with Beth was reuse the one-liners from Bruce, and you just felt like you're trying to force it here. And I am still interested in what they're doing with the storyline, you know, with the 3 Necronomicons and stuff. That's going to be interesting. Maybe we'll see Ash again. Obviously, we're probably going to be getting the animated series as well. So, yeah, you're right. Ash being the cause of evil is always hilarious, but it's also very important for the whole premise of Evil Dead, honestly. Always Fresh says, Ash smoking the ganga. You meant to say ganja? Am I saying that wrong? You spelled it like ganga. It looks like a Pokemon. Ash smoking the ganja and accidentally summoning demons again is me in high school. Fresh. I'm glad I didn't go to high school with you. I didn't want demons on me. But yeah, I bet you had an interest in high school. Although memories, we all went to high school and had a lot of demons around us that we didn't realize. Old Head, my guy Old Head, you can go check him out on YouTube. Ash picking up that girl at the bar because he lies about his wooden hand kills me every time. Yeah. Sometimes they don't tell you that they don't tell you sometimes that that's an 8-year-old boy on the tracks that gets stuck on the tracks, right? Did I get the quote right? I probably didn't. And that's it. That is all my thoughts. That's the scene by scenes. That is all the DVD commentary for this episode. It's a long one. Obviously this is about 53 minutes long. I'm gonna push these to about 40 to an hour, depending on the episode, and obviously the episode lengths are about 30 minutes, so we'll be able to read through the scene by scenes a lot quicker. You know, in terms of, like, again, we're pointing out the guest stars. I think the guest stars did a fantastic job. We do see Damien Garvey in the next episode as Mr. Roper again, which is gonna be, what is the next episode of Ash vs. Evil Dead? I should know this, right? The next episode is going to be called Bait. I had to Google that because I didn't have it written down because I'm an idiot. I was going to do a whole outro thing here again. But in terms of the rating and my overall thoughts, again, just an amazing pilot, a way to set up the series in a whole, you know, introducing all the new characters, the cinematography, watching this in the groovy collection that I have. You know, watching this and seeing it in high def Blu-ray, because I recently watched, like, I previously always watched this on streaming and stuff, and it just doesn't look that good. But when you have the Blu-ray quality playing on the PS5 on this monitor that I've got here, it just looked absolutely amazing, and I loved it. You know, it kind of brought a lot of things to light that I've never noticed before, which is the lighting and everything in every scene. And so, again, I'm going to have to agree with Spoder on this. My rating's going to be a bit different though. And I'm going to give this 3 chainsaws, which is the best rating we can give for an episode. Now, not every episode's going to be 3 chainsaws. Some episodes are going to have a boomstick and some are going to be a pink fuck down the middle. But yeah, this one's definitely 3 chainsaws for me. Let me know down below in the comment section what your rating is for this. You give it 3 chainsaws? Do you give it, you know, you can give it half a chainsaw as well. So you can go 1.5, 2.5, or just half a chainsaw, anything like that. Or boomstick if you didn't like it. You know, is this a failure? I doubt anybody will see that, but do let me know down below. And of course, if you guys want to participate in this Rewatch podcast, like I said, look out on the community side of things on my channel. If you go to the channel and head to the community section, I do posts on there, and I will be putting out, you know, when to watch the show. Usually I'll probably be doing this every weekend, so you know, I'm recording this on a Monday, gonna edit it and post it on a Monday as well. I'm gonna try doing anyway. Hopefully it doesn't take too much of my time up. Again, this is the first time of me doing it, so I'm sorry if it's a little bit all over the place. I'm just trying to find my feet with it. I'm not no stranger at doing podcasts, and like I said, it's going to be, you know, later on down the line, and each episode we'll try and get some other people on as well and discuss the episode with, and we'll enjoy it that way as well. And like I said, if you guys want to get involved, just head to the community post, and when I put the post out, leave the comment about the episode and let me know your thoughts on the episode, and I'm going to read them out at the end of the podcast, which I've really enjoyed doing this. Honestly, it's something different. It's something nice and sweet, short and sweet, and you know, I've worked quite hard, you know, on my logo, on the merch, and you know, the intro as well. And like I said, I'm going to try and get the merch out for you guys. And again, I just want to ask you guys for your support. You know, hit that subscribe button if you are new to the channel. Leave me a like, leave me a comment, let me know your thoughts. It greatly helps out the podcast, even if you just leave a comment. If it is stupid as it would be, you know, YouTube algorithm works really in strange ways, and the more people interact with the content, the more people I get to watch it. And of course, become a member of the channel if you want to support it financially at all. The membership options are there, starting at like $3 or $4. I can't remember what my tier 1 is, going all the way up to a El Brujo Especial, which is about $23 a month. But yeah, I really appreciate all the support, guys. I know I haven't been streaming or anything lately. This is probably the longest thing I've done in the last 3 weeks. You know, I think the last time I streamed was 3 weeks ago, and you know, I'm going through some things right now. I'm a lot better for it. You can probably tell I'm a lot more relaxed, even though I'm still I get a little bit nervous and anxious still doing these things. You know, I'm sitting here playing with my paper and stuff, but that's just me. You know, when I was streaming every day, I was like waking up, I was getting pains and everything. It wasn't nice, and something snapped inside of me that just went, no, you need to stop. You can't keep doing this. You are literally killing yourself. And that's what I felt like I was doing. But since I've just been a much happier person since I took a break. You know, I've obviously changed the setup a little bit. I hope you guys like the new backdrop with the paint and everything, and the new disc plates that I've got. Well, I got one new disc plate, which is the Nuka-Cola one. I did try and want to get it set up so you guys could see the whole Evil Dead shelf there. We have Ash behind us. We have Ashy Slashy, the Necronomicon and everything. And we got a little Homelander up there. You know, I really spent a lot of time on doing all this as well on my downtime. And, you know, I've been, you know, doing some yoga and things, some stretches, trying to just get more focused and trying to repair my broken body. And if I'm being totally honest, gaming right now has not been that interesting. That's why I'm doing a TV show podcast right now. You know, gaming right now, you know, TCM, you know, you guys that watch me for that, it's a bit oof right now. I was paying attention to the anniversary update, everything was kind of broken, and Killer Clowns, again, it's Killer Clowns, so there's not much for me to really play right now. Marvel Rivals content isn't doing too well on my channel either, so I don't know if I'm going to keep proceeding in that. It might just be something I do on the side to horror stuff, but I'm definitely going to be well invested into doing this podcast, regardless of how well it does. I'm going to be going all the way at the end of Ash vs. Evil Dead Season 3, and then we could branch out with doing the movies of Evil Dead. We can branch out with doing some other horror stuff as well. But I really hope you guys enjoyed the first episode of Deadite Talk. I'm really excited to keep this thing going. And like I said, check the description down below to join the Discord. Obviously, hit that subscribe button on the channel. I don't really go on social media too much. You can follow me on Twitter. I probably spend the most time on there or anywhere. Instagram and stuff, leave that up to you if you want to check that out. But appreciate you guys listening and watching. Hope you enjoyed the podcast, and thank you guys so much for watching. I've been Pixels, my awesome viewers. I'll catch you guys in the next one.